What are you at? It's Paul from Wicked Acorn. How do you do today? Let's see if I can get things moving here. Good evening, 1, 2, 3, 4. Good evening, Rick. Welcome aboard. So, have you been watching the news? Uh, the world as we know it is gone, I think. And that was quite a speech that Carney gave last night or the night before, was it? And yeah, we're living in interesting times, as the Chinese curse goes. May you live in interesting times. And yeah, the world as we know it is changing very much so. And all this stuff about Greenland has got me wondering about Greenland. I don't know anything about Greenland. I know very little about Greenland. Most of what I know about Greenland comes from the Vikings TV show. Uh, I know the Vikings were there, and I know the Inuit and there are native populations there, but I know very little about Greenland. So I figured it's time to learn something about Greenland. So let's have a look and see what we can learn about Greenland tonight. I found this video, this popped up the other night, and I said, oh, that's a good live stream. It's a brief history of Greenland and why Trump wants to control it. That's a little bit off the screen there. I got to fix that. Um, yeah, so that's what I want to look at this evening because, like I said, I don't know a lot about the history of Greenland. My uncle, one of my uncles, I never met the man. I've mentioned before that my father's family, it was like two completely different, separate families. I think there was like uh, 400 of them or something, siblings, and uh, there were a lot of kids. And like the difference between the oldest and youngest, the oldest could have been the youngest's parent easily. Um, one of my uncles, I never met him. He moved to the United States in the 30s, and he was in the US military, and he was stationed in Greenland um, in the 50s, I think. Um, might have those dates wrong, but he was in the US forces and stationed in Greenland. He died before I was born. I never met the man. Uh, so I don't know a lot about it, and that's why I want to watch this video. So let's get in, and I'm sure we'll be chiming in as we go.
The world's largest island, at just over 2.1 million square kilometres.
I found it. Just let me play this, see if I can pause it in time here.
Island, at just over 2.
There it is. There's the Greenland. There's the Greenland part of Greenland. What is that, a football pitch or something? Is that a football pitch? I guess that's the Greenland part of Greenland. This looks very familiar. This looks a lot like Newfoundland. Newfoundland is up there in the frozen north, even though we're south. Newfoundland is south of the United Kingdom. It's that Labrador Current thing in the Gulf Stream.
1 million square kilometres, or more than 1.3 million square miles. Its northern coast is the most northerly piece of land in the world too. Technically part of the continent of North America, Greenland has had closer political and...
Even that looks a lot like Newfoundland. The houses. You don't see a lot of modern houses like that in Newfoundland on the coastline. They're more, they're much older houses. But this looks so uniform, very uniform. Newfoundland is very higgledy-piggledy. It's all over the place. The houses are just all over the place. I guess this is a more modern community.
Cultural ties with Europe for over a millennium. Despite its size, Greenland has a population of just 57,000 people. The capital city, Nuuk, is, like most of Greenland's inhabited areas, near to the south coast in the southwest of the island. Greenland has been associated with Denmark for centuries. It was from 1953 before being granted home rule in 1979. Further powers were devolved to Greenland in 2009, and recent political discussions and elections have become increasingly focused on the question of independence from Denmark. The strategic location and natural resources of Greenland have made it a focus for...
And we have polar bears in Newfoundland as well. Not often, but they do show up from time to time. And there was one in St. John's, in the capital city in Newfoundland. It came in on an iceberg or ice floe. And yeah, that was pretty scary. Polar bear roaming the streets of a populated city. And a polar bear is a big animal. You have no idea how big a polar bear is until you see one in person.
International attention and attempts to control it for a long time. The story of how somewhere so cold became such hot property is a long and fascinating one. The earliest known inhabitants of Greenland are believed to be the Inuit peoples who crossed from North America via the islands that are scattered off the coast of modern Canada. A number of waves of migration took place.
It's an interesting map they got there. Greenland is completely covered in white, and I guess it is completely covered in ice and snow. But so is Canada. All of that northern part of Canada is covered in snow and ice permanently as well. So that's kind of a interesting map they've drawn there, or colored in.
From around 2500 BCE, representing different Inuit cultures. The periods of migration, which frequently overlap, have been categorized as Independence I, which began in around 2500 BCE and lasted until about 1800 BCE. Then there is Sakak from circa 2300 BCE to 900 BCE. Independence II from 1200 BCE to 700 BCE. Dorset I from 600 BCE until 100 AD, and Dorset II from 700 AD until 1200 AD. The final Inuit migration is known as the Thule culture, which arrived around the beginning of the 12th century.
I've not heard it pronounced that way. Thule is pronounced Thule, as far as I know. That's the only way I've ever heard it pronounced, Thule, not Thule. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain that's the way it's pronounced in Canada. Pretty sure that's the correct pronunciation, Thule. And Dorset, we have the Dorset, we're in Newfoundland as well. um, and named after Dorset over here in the UK, strangely enough. I don't think the Thule are named after anywhere European, probably their own name. I'm not certain on that, but I'm fairly certain it's pronounced Thule.
As the Thule culture, which arrived around the beginning of the 12th century AD. This group interacted with the Norse settlements they found on Greenland's southwest coast, more on that in a moment, and gave rise.
So as you may know, the Norse were in Newfoundland. They found a Norse settlement on the Great Northern Peninsula of Newfoundland, and let's see what he's got to say about it. Maybe he gets into that. But that's what happened to them, according to the Norse sagas. Um, they went to Newfoundland, or Vinland as they called it, the land of grapes, and the natives drove them out. They called them Skraelings in the sagas, and I guess that's what's being depicted there in Greenland. But the native population drove out the Vikings. Can you imagine that? I guess they were outnumbered because the native population would have been Stone Age people, they didn't have iron for sure, but the Vikings did. So interesting that they could drive off, the fierce Vikings.
They found on Greenland's southwest coast, more on that in a moment, and gave rise to the Inuksuk culture, which centred on West Greenland in the Upper Narvik district, and saw greater reliance on hunting on the water by kayak. The Norse people encountered by the Thule were Vikings, who had been on Greenland for more than a century by the time the Thule arrived. The settling of Greenland by Norsemen is usually dated to the arrival of Eric the Red in around 982 AD. Eric, probably nicknamed the Red for the colour of his hair, had a saga written about his red. It tells a colourful story of its protagonist from Norway, but when his father was found guilty of manslaughter in about 960 AD, the family were banished when Eric was around 10 years old. They sailed west and settled in Iceland. Following in his father's footsteps, Eric got into trouble with the law too. After a dispute with a neighbour led to several deaths, Eric moved to an island just off Iceland. When Eric got into another fight and killed several more men, he was banished from Iceland. He might have wondered.
All that stuff is so close together up there. That's how they got to Newfoundland, island hopping. But everything is very close together up there. It's deceiving how well. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it in a kayak, but or a long ship. But there was a guy that did it in a kayak. Actually, he showed up here in the UK somewhere, and I believe his kayak and his outfit, his sealskin clothing, are preserved somewhere in this country. Like, he got blown off course. It wasn't an intentional trip, and I think he landed in Scotland somewhere, and I think his kayak and clothing are preserved in some museum here. So yeah, it's doable, but everything is pretty close up there.
And killed several more men, he was banished from Iceland. He might have wondered where he could go now, but there appear to have been stories of land even further west that no one had managed to settle yet. Low on options, Eric packed his young family into a ship and sailed west.
So I'm having trouble with the dropped frames here again. Something has gone wrong with OBS here, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to fix it. It's a real drag. Just waiting to get through the adverts here.
To a ship and sailed west. Sure enough, they found land, but it was frozen as far as the eye could see. Sailing around the southern tip, Eric worked the ship up the western coast until he found some land that wasn't just ice and snow. The saga of Eric the Red says he spent the next 3 years building a home and exploring new land found. After the third year, his exile was over. He returned to Iceland, but only to try and encourage others to come with him and settle the new territory. Presumably, he'd be the ruler, but he needed people that he could rule. The saga tells us Eric called the new place Greenland to deliberately deceive the Islanders he was trying to convince. His sail.
So I've also heard that, just going to try to switch over to this camera, see if the dropped frames resolves a bit there. At that period in history, the planet was warmer, as I understand. You've heard of the Little Ice Age. Well, this was before that. So there was Greenland, as in, the color green. There was, it wasn't a lush tropical world, but it was greener than it is today. Let's see if I can get this any better here. It's still showing dropped frames.
To deliberately deceive the Icelanders he was trying to convince. His sales trick worked. 25 ships left Iceland, though only 14 arrived in Greenland, demonstrating how dangerous the journey was. They established an eastern settlement, now Qaqortoq, and a western settlement near the modern capital of Nuuk. Life was hard, but over the years it's estimated that between 3,000 and 6,000 Vikings lived on Greenland. They hunted seals, walrus for the ivory in their tusks, and whales, all incredibly valuable commodities. Eric's son, Leif Erikson, would sail further west and be credited as the first European to discover North America. He would also Christianize Greenland, his mother having been a Christian. The first bishopric was established in Greenland in 1126. Precisely what happened to the settlements on Greenland is unknown. The last written record appears in 1408 and relates to a marriage on the island. In 1540, a ship landed on what had been the eastern settlement and recorded discovering the corpse of a Norse man with these words: "Dead man, lying face downwards on the ground. On his head a hood, well made, and otherwise good clothing of frieze cloth and sealskin. Near him was a sheath knife, bent and much worn and eaten away." Why the
Interesting. Yeah, there's we used to have these things called vignettes, Canada vignettes, and they were little history stories from Canadian history, and that's one of the things that was found. I can't remember where it was found now, but somewhere in the north of Canada was a chess piece, and it was they assumed it was a chess piece, a pawn from a chess piece, and it was a Viking berserker holding his shield, biting on the shield, and it's carved from ivory, I believe. And let's see if I can find that. It wouldn't have been Greenland because it was a Canada vignette about the history of Canada. And one that popped up in my feed the other day was the history of basketball. And basketball was invented by a Canadian. And that was one of the vignettes. So it's something that I've been thinking about doing, is making a little video about the history of basketball. Isle of Lewis Chessman. Don't think that's it. But it does look like that.
What if?
Might even be a piece from that chess set, the same chess set. It looks like it.
Could get your money moving with access to thousands of global stocks.
Bloody adverts. I don't think this is it, though. Another one.
Century, somewhere in Scandinavia, Norway, the chessmen comprised part of a hoard of 93 walrus ivory objects found at some point before April 1831 on the Isle of Lewis, from which they take their name, in the Outer Hebrides off the western coast of Scotland. The belt buckle and 14 ivory counters, probably used in a game similar to backgammon, were found with them. Most of the hoard was acquired by the British Museum between November.
Yeah, so that's not it. It's similar looking to that. It looks more like this, that one there. I don't see it here. Well, let's have a look at this one. This one's about the Vikings. This is not it. But these are the things I was telling you about, these Canada vignettes.
A 1,000 years ago, if you saw one of these coming, you got out of the way. Full of wolves, they were called, rigged in leather, side-ruddered and at ease in a menacing sea. Oak planks flexed to the twist of the waves. With 30 men, this gorgeous rowboat could cross the Atlantic in 28 days and survive just about anything. This may have had something to do with the crews, who seemed to relish the most distasteful conditions. Leif Erikson here, an archetypal Norseman, was quite prepared to conquer a new world as soon as he found it. In a spruce cove in Newfoundland, this blend of aggression and technology reached America 500 years before Columbus.
So there are all kinds of those things. They're quite good. A lot of those, they would come on like adverts in between programs, and they were aimed at kids, of course. I wish I could remember the name of that. I'm really not remembering what to search for here. Oh, this might be it. Maybe I'm misremembering. Get through the advert here. I think I'm getting the two stories mixed together here. I think this might be it. It's called The Visitor. This is National Film Board of Canada. Maybe this is, oh yeah, it is a vignette. That's Inuit throat singing. Very interesting, very interesting. It's something that I don't know a lot about this now. I could be getting this really wrong. Why is that like that? What happened to our chat? Oh, there it is. Very interesting. It's called throat singing, and they stand face to face like this, and they do that, what you hear, strange singing that they do. And they stand face to face like this, nose to nose almost, and they do that singing. I'll put it on again. It's really interesting. It's a type of singing the Inuit do. And I heard one guess about it, how it came about, is like it would, you know, like you're getting oxygen deprivation, where you're so close and you're breathing in the other person's expelled air. So it's you kind of like get into a trance, hallucinating, oxygen deprivation kind of thing. Anyway, just check it out. Listen to the singing there. It's really interesting singing.
Who were the first Europeans to reach North America? Found recently on Baffin Island, this wood carving holds a claim to our history. Look at this statue closely. It has a cross on its chest, a Christian cross. And unlike Inuit dress, it wears a pleated coat with hood. It's almost priest-like. This ancient statue supports the medieval Norse claim of a trans-ocean contact hundreds, perhaps 1,000 years ago.
Vinted's new electronics category means.
Yeah, so I'm getting the two stories confused. The chess piece was in the Hebrides somewhere. But yeah, it's up up north, Baffin Island, he said. If they ever put up a map, I'll show you where Baffin Island is.
Sheath knife, bent and much worn and eaten away. Why the settlement failed after half a millennium is unclear, though it's possible the Little Ice Age, a period of global cooling that began in 1300 and lasted until the middle of the 19th century, made life there increasingly impossible. The mystery surrounding the fate of Greenland's Norse settlers led to centuries of speculation. What if there were real, old-world Vikings still in Greenland? That was a mystery someone was bound to explore. The last American Inuits arrived during the Viking settlement. The Thule arrived during the 14th century. Like the other Inuit before them, they kept mainly to the northwest of Greenland. Walrus.
Oh, it's all dropping out. Yeah, there were several migrations of what we call Aboriginal Native people in Canada. And the Inuit are the more recent arrivals. And they came across the Bering Strait, of course. And they're not closely related to the Indian, what we call Indian population. First Nations, that's a different bunch altogether. Again, I don't know a lot about this. I know enough to endanger myself. Yeah, they're different people. When Newfoundland joined Canada in 1949, the Inuit people weren't covered under any Aboriginal Act for many, many decades. They were left to their own devices, and they were probably better off for it, being left alone, because they were not treated well by Canada. When they were governed by Newfoundland, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, they were just left to their own devices. They did their thing as they had done for thousands of years. And when Newfoundland joined Canada, they came under the Canadian Aboriginal, I can't remember the name of the act, and they were all put in schools, and not a good story, not a nice story what happened to the native people in Labrador. Not a nice story at all. Let's see if this is going to play any better.
Narwhal. The extent to which they had contact and trade with the Norse settlements is unclear, but the Inuit lived in the parts of Greenland the Norse never settled. The late 15th century's explosion in exploration saw a number of attempts to find a northwest passage to Asia. None were successful, but there were large-scale whaling operations in the area around Greenland by the 16th century, led by English and Dutch ships. Ice coverage and frozen seas of the Little Ice Age made it almost impossible to find, let alone settle, Greenland. In the early 18th century, King Frederick IV of Denmark sponsored a religious mission to Greenland. There was a belief that Vikings, isolated there for centuries, still lived there. If so, they would still be Catholic, whereas Denmark was now Protestant. They might even have reverted to paganism. The mission found no Vikings and struggled to convert the Inuit population they encountered. However, they did begin to settle the southwest coast again and operate trading posts out.
So this is Baffin Island here.
In 1776, the Danish government claimed a complete monopoly on trade with Greenland, and the island became a colony of the Kingdom of Denmark. Greenland was closed to all foreign traders, and this restriction and monopoly would only be lifted in 1950. The Northwest Passage was finally discovered during a voyage between 1903 and 1906 by Roald Amundsen. During the flourishing of Polish 19th and early 20th centuries, American expeditions began to venture into northern Greenland.
So another Newfoundland connection with all these guys is a guy called Bob Bartlett, Captain Bob Bartlett, and he was the captain of all the vessels of the vessel, or the vessels that brought all these guys as far north as you could get by sea. He brought them up to Greenland and dropped them off as far as you could go. You know, the closer you could get by sea, the better. And he did Antarctica as well. He was quite a famous guy in his day back in the, when would that be? The 20s, was it? I can't remember when it was. Maybe in the teens, the 1910s. Quite a famous guy in his time. There are newsreels. He used to do newsreels that they would show in the cinemas back in the day. So he was quite famous back, 100 plus years ago. There's a couple on YouTube, I think. Captain Bob Bartlett is his name. Old newsreels that he would do on his adventures, bringing these people north. And he lived in Brigus, and my wife's family had a cabin, a country home in Brigus, so he was a local celebrity there.
Which had always been inaccessible to anyone but the Inuit. One expedition, led by Robert Peary, dispelled the long-standing myth that Greenland stretched to the North Pole by charting its northern coast. These visits have formed part of an American territorial claim to Greenland. When the US purchased the Danish West Indies, now the Virgin Islands, from Denmark as part of its desire to shore up control in the Caribbean, the US gave up any claim to Greenland as part of the sale. The purchase of the Danish West Indies was preceded by threats to take the territory by force until the Danish government agreed to a sale to avoid an invasion. The US believed control of the Danish West Indies was necessary for its national security. Although Greenland was viewed similarly, the claim was dropped, even if the desire to control the island remained. In 1905, Norway laid claim to Greenland on the basis that it had been a Norwegian possession prior to 1815. The dispute resulted from the breakup of the Union of the Crowns of Denmark and Norway that lasted from 1537 until 1814 and rumbled on for many years. A Norwegian meteorologist named Halvard Devold occupied part of the uninhabited east coast of Greenland on his own accord in 1931. The Norwegian government then backed Devold's move to formally claim Greenland. After 2 years, the Permanent Court of International Justice decided the case in Denmark's favour, and the Norwegian occupation ended. World War II saw the strategic importance of Greenland rise to even greater prominence. In 1940, Germany invaded and occupied Denmark, cutting off Greenland. Its position in the high North Atlantic made it a vital region that the Allies and Axis powers sought to control. It offered a base for shipping, particularly for the Allies to hunt U-boats, and was considered important for forecasting weather in the Atlantic too. In April, 1941, the Danish ambassador to the USA signed a treaty giving the US permission to place military bases on Greenland. The ambassador refused to acknowledge German control of Denmark, and when the Danish government accused him of treason and ordered him to return to Denmark, the ambassador declined to do so. Probably wisely. Greenland became a United States protectorate. The US established 14 military bases along the west and east of which were used by American, Canadian and British forces. It became the core of the effort to attack German submarines and allow traffic across the Atlantic. During the war, disconnected from Denmark, Greenland enjoyed a period of relative autonomy. In 1941, in response to German forces establishing weather stations on its east coast, Greenland established the Sledge Patrol. Greenlanders with dog sledges patrolled the areas locating German bases. They would either attack themselves.
All right, we've frozen up again. I'll switch cameras here to hopefully let that ease out. I got to figure out that problem with the OBS there. I didn't know anything about that history. I vaguely remember hearing things about the Nazis being in that part of the world. Just recently, in the last couple decades, there was a radio station, a Nazi radio station found in Labrador. I keep telling you about Newfoundland and Labrador history because it's what I know. I know a lot of Newfoundland and Labrador history, although I don't know it. I don't know this part well. Yeah, there was a like a radio station. They found radio equipment there, and it was a weather forecasting because the U-boats. Newfoundland was the only place attacked by Germany in North America during the Second World War. There was they went right into Conception Bay and sank ships in Conception Bay, which is like where they sank them is pretty incredible. Like they're inland quite a ways. And so there was rumors of a U-boat that sank somewhere in Labrador, somewhere up to St. Lawrence or so, not St. Lawrence, I can't remember, up one of the rivers. And it's quite possible that these things happened because they were there. All right, let's see if this is going to play now.
To assault the installations. By 1944, Germany had been forced to abandon its interest in Greenland. The Sledge Patrol suffered only one casualty during its years of operation. At the war...
Honestly, mate, before I met...
And then we get an advert. Yeah, so I didn't know that about the becoming a United States protectorate. That's interesting.
At the war's end, Greenlanders welcomed Denmark's liberation and a return to control from Copenhagen. However, the experience of autonomy left a strong mark on the people of Greenland. The Danish ambassador to the US did now return to Denmark, where treason charges against him were dropped, and his treaty with the US was ratified. In 1951, it was replaced by a new treaty, allowing the US to maintain a military presence on bases in Greenland. During the Cold War, Greenland remained a place the US considered vital to its national security. In 1946, the US offered Denmark $100 million in gold bullion for Greenland, but Denmark refused to sell it. In 1955, the Joint Chiefs encouraged President Eisenhower to pick the idea up again, but it came to nothing. Greenland sits about halfway between Washington, D.C. and Moscow. The US believed it was an important position from which to counter Russia's control of Arctic seaports. It was also thought that any intercontinental missiles would most likely travel over the North Pole and therefore Greenland before reaching America, making it a vital radar and observation point. The new treaty of 1951 made Thule Air Base in the northwest of Greenland permanent. In 1953, some of the Inuit residents were forced from their homes by the Danish government to make room for the base's expansion. This is the reason the base has become a source of lingering friction between Greenlanders and the Danish government. Shock, fear and outrage were caused in 1968 when a US Air Force B-52 bomber crashed in Greenland. It emerged that the plane was transporting 4 hydrogen bombs, and radioactive debris from the crash contaminated the surrounding area. There was a large-scale cleanup operation, but it was further revealed that only 3 of the 4 bombs had been found. The 4th remains missing to this day.
Uh-oh. That sounds problematic, doesn't it? A missing nuclear bomb. I guess there's more than one missing nuclear bomb. They've probably lost several.
In 1995, the Danish government scandal known as Thulegate. It was revealed that in the years prior to the plane crash, nuclear weapons had been routinely flown over Greenland.
Oh, it's so frustrating. I've got to figure out some way to fix this. Sometimes it's fine and sometimes it starts glitching like that. I'll just yammer on here a bit and watch the numbers go down here, hopefully. It looks a lot like Newfoundland. Frozen, rugged, rocky land. And the colorful houses look like Newfoundland as well. That's the way we paint our houses in Newfoundland.
Had been routinely flown over Greenland. The Danish government were discovered to have tacitly allowed this to happen, despite the country's position as a nuclear-free nation. As the US continued to develop the base at Thule and improve its radar capabilities, inhabitants on the island began to raise concerns that it would make Greenland a prime target for any strike, nuclear or otherwise, that would put the population at severe risk. Despite concerns, the base remains in place and is considered a vital national security asset by the US.
Gosh, another advert. Oh, it's a talking toothbrush. That was one of the first commercials that was shown in the UK. One of the first commercials, one of the first adverts, you guys call it, right? Was a talking toothbrush or a talking tube of toothpaste. Wasn't that something we were watching a little while ago? Something I was watching a little while ago anyway.
Security asset by the US. Greenland ceased to be termed a colony of Denmark in 1952 when it was recognised instead as an autonomous overseas province. It's since been considered a constituent part of Denmark, in effect an overseas county of the kingdom. Greenland was, for the first time, permitted to elect representatives to the Danish parliament. In 1973, Greenland, as part of Denmark, joined the European Common Market, the forerunner to the European Union, despite Greenland itself voting against membership by a majority of 70%. The island's concerns were realised when free trade meant other nations had access to its waters and they became heavily overfished. Under increasing pressure, Denmark granted Greenland home rule in 1978, establishing a representative assembly known as the Landsting. The name of the capital was changed from Godthåb to Nuuk, and Greenland got a new flag in 1985. In 1982, 53% of Greenlanders voted to leave the European Economic Community, a process completed in 1985. From 2008, Greenland's devolved powers were extended, including allowing the withdrawal of Danish as the official national language in 2009. The Home Rule government in Greenland has remained concerned about the presence of the US Thule base. Around the turn of the millennium, there was a growing desire to renegotiate the 1951 treaty between the US and Denmark, and to push for the United Nations to be given control of the base in place of the US. Elections in Greenland have frequently focused on a growing interest in full independence. In 2025, elections delivered a shock result as the centre-right Democratic Party tripled its vote and took its share. The Democratic Party and Nalarak, a party that came in second, campaigned in favour of independence for Greenland, though Democratic favoured a more cautious and gradual move than Nalarak. No party has an overall majority, and any further move towards independence will depend on the makeup of the coalition that's formed. Recent polls have suggested
That's something you find in a lot of these places. There was a independence movement in Quebec in Canada in the 70s. There still is, but yeah, it's interesting how if a people want to be independent, I guess you allow them to be so, don't you? Like Scotland here, and that's so weird that independence. It's I'm trying to speak in code here. Yeah, it's very interesting how this take over this place, and a lot of them want to be on their own, not even part of Denmark. They want to be self-ruled. Very interesting. I'm just letting the machine cool down here. I know it's not the right word, cool down, but it's the best word I got for it. I have no techie experience, and I have to figure out what's wrong with this.
Recent polls have suggested that 85% of the population of Greenland opposes becoming part of the United States, and more than half consider recent comments from America to be a direct threat against Greenland. So why does Greenland remain such a prominent concern for the USA? Recent statements have continued to position it as vital to the national security of the United States, despite President Trump insisting he has a strong relationship with Russian leader Vladimir Putin, that Russia wouldn't attack the US, and that the US is no longer interested in being an international policeman. There is another reason why Greenland is of interest to the USA, and why the interest might be framed as relating to national security. According to the US Geological Survey, Greenland has an estimated 17.5 billion barrels of oil beneath it, and significant reserves of natural gas. However, environmental considerations and objections from indigenous peoples mean that oil and gas extraction is currently banned in Greenland. In 2023, a European Commission survey established that Greenland contains 25 of the 34 rare earth minerals considered critical raw materials. These deposits are believed to be considerable and are materials vital to the production of electronics and green technologies. The extraction of these rare earth minerals is coordinated by China. The US has demonstrated an interest in securing access to rare earth minerals in Ukraine in order to assist in finding a solution to Russia's invasion of that nation. The importance of Greenland to the US might now lie in the existence of oil, gas, and rare earth minerals. And rather than being viewed as vital to military security against Russia, it might be economic security against China. Once more towards Greenland. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this brief history of Greenland. If you want to find more explainers like this, you can head over to our YouTube channel now, where you'll also find a very similar explainer about Ukraine and Russia's interest there. I've been Matt Lewis, and this is History Hit.
So that was pretty interesting. I didn't know much about the, let's give them a like. Be sure to give this video a like too. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know much about Greenland history. If what he says is correct, what he said is correct, it seemed pretty balanced. It was not a one-sided accounting of the situation. If what he said is true, it didn't seem to be biased much in any way, which is what I would like to hear. Make my own opinions, come up with my own opinions on these things. Although I do listen to much biased accounting of events as well. Anyway, that was what I wanted to look at tonight, and hopefully I can get this straightened out. So what do you guys think of Thursday night? Hello, Astrax. Just in time to say goodbye. What's that song? Just in time to be too late. Is that a Hank Williams song? I think that's a Hank Williams song. Just in time to be too late, and something like that. Yeah, hopefully I can get this ironed out. I hope I don't have to install it all again. That would be terrible. It was a lot of work to install this, but sometimes that's what you have to do with these things, like dump them and reinstall them. They get messed up the more you use them sometimes. I hope that's not what I have to do. I did change something a while ago, and that's when it happened. Story of your life, is it, Astrax? Yeah, so hopefully I can get this ironed out. Anyway, thank you everybody for dropping in. Hopefully Thursday works out for you. I've wrote up a new schedule for getting these videos together, and Thursday is a lighter day. Wednesday is going to be shooting day, when I have to leave the house and go out and shoot video, or sometimes stay in the house and shoot video. And if I'm shooting video, I won't want to do a live stream if I'm shooting video all day. So that's the plan as of now, is a Thursday around this time, 6:30. We'll go with Thursday for 6:30. So I hope that works for everybody. Thursday is good for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's great. Excellent. Good to hear. Astrax might show up late, but that's the story of his life. How's the move going, Astrax? Is there anything happening with the move? Have you had any success there? Anyway, I'll wait to see your reply, because people are arriving home from work, and it's time for me to make the donuts. All right, see you in the next one.